Mike Benkovich, and Mike is you are one of the founding members of the club also. Mike and I go back a long ways. We've known each other for a good 20 years or so. We were in a TechMasters club ages ago together, and we ended up reuniting here at our club. It was a surprise to see each other after so many years. And we're fortunate to have Mike, another high-quality speaker, who is going to be talking to us today on yes and. I'd like you to welcome Mike Benkovich.
Mike. Thank you, Loris, and good morning, fellow Toastmasters.
Morning.
We having fun yet?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, like Loris said, I've been in Toastmasters for a couple years, 22, 23 years, you could say. In fact, I was in the building right behind here where Hugo's restaurant is, which is where I went to my very first meeting. And it was backwards day, and what they did with backwards day was they had the speakers, but they were presenting towards the wall. It was heckler's day, they were throwing stuff at them. It was one of those things where you really learn how much do you know about public speaking, and how can you dive into this and make sure you're going to get done and do what you need to do. And so one of the things that you learn when you join Toastmasters is that you get these prepared speeches where you get out and it's like you have this time to put the speech together, you practice it, you time it, you know everything that's going to happen with it. What I've found in life is that oftentimes I'm not using a prepared speech. Go figure, right? So what do? Well, you speak off the cuff, and that's where the table topics is great because you get a chance to stand up and spend a couple minutes doing this. Now, my brother and I have an older brother and a younger brother. The older one and I were in business for a few years, and anyway, he's in Chicago now. And one of the things he recently said, I mean, this is the ultimate geek. I mean, he walks around with the tan pants and the striped. Anyway, what he told me is he's going to a place called Second City. Anyone ever heard of Second City? So it's where Saturday Night Live all came out of and all of that, and they have improv classes on how to stand up and do all these different things. And in fact, when you think about improv, I always thought, okay, cool, stand-up comedy. Learn how to stand up and tell a joke. Well, we do that with the joke of the day, but improv seems to be more than that. And so I was talking with him, and he's kind of the ultimate geek, and it's first day of class, and he's walking in, and he's the instructor wasn't there, and so everyone is sitting in the little lawn chairs, waiting for everyone to get there, and they start introducing themselves, and most of the people that are in this class are sitting around in the jeans, just casual theater types, having a good time. And anyway, so Jim walks in, he's got his consultant suit in, and sits down, and it's like after about 5 minutes or 10 minutes, someone says, who's the instructor? And I mean, this is an improv class, and someone said, well, wouldn't it be funny if one of us was the instructor? And they say, oh yeah, that'd be just hilarious. Well, who do you think it would be? And they pointed to Jim and said, well, I think he's the instructor. He looks the part. And Jim says, yeah, you got me. I'm the instructor. Hey, let's get this started. Let's line up those chairs over on the wall, and let's dive into this, okay? So first thing we're going to do is animal noises, okay? Everyone make your best animal noise. And the thing was, this thing progressed to a point where people are walking around, if you're going to be a cow, be and having just all kinds of fun. And anyway, the instructor showed up. And they're like, well, you're the instructor. He says, well, yeah. And who's this guy? We don't know, but he had us making animal noises. The funny part about it is that improv is about a set of rules. Tina Fey has written a bunch of articles about this. I don't know if anyone follows the whole Saturday Night Live, but she says improv is all about taking suggestions. Give me a suggestion. A word.
Mustache.
Mustache. I was thinking about mustaches are great, and I'd like to grow one. Have you thought about putting on a mustache?
I have had one in the past at times.
Yeah, did you enjoy it? Well, what I find is that mustaches really tickle children. And when you are running around, you get that nice little handlebar, and thinking of handlebars, it really leads into, how do you actually use the mustache to be something that you're not, because it's almost a mask. It's something you put on to your persona, and you use that when you're in front of other people. But then you can go home, you can take off the mustache, if it's the kind that you can put on and take off, kind of one of those fake mustaches. And then you come back to Toastmasters, you put your mask back on, and you get up in front of the audience and you just have some fun with it. Why would you do that? Because you don't want to ask questions. You want to make statements. So Tina Fey put out this list, this rules of how to do improv. I don't know who's ever used this rule list, but I went out and I actually created a bit.ly link, bit.ly, and it's BQT Improv with a capital I. Bit.ly seems to be case sensitive. But if you go out to that link, you're going to find an article where she talks about the 4 golden rules of improv. Number 1, when you're up and you're doing an improv and you're with other people, is agree. Someone says, I like mustaches. And you say, no, I don't. That's not agreeing, that's shutting down the conversation. But if you say, yeah, I like mustaches and I really like hats that go with them. Okay, well now you're leading into something. So the first rule of improv is to agree with suggestions. And so the rules of interaction, when you're trying to put together a scene, is to try to take all of those things and put it together with the conversation, so you can keep that conversation going, but also keep it interesting. Rule number 2 is yes, and what? And this is where your creativity comes in. This is where something comes off the top of your head, and it just flows into how that conversation flows. The next rule is to make statements. Too often we get into making questions and asking the audience those rhetorical proverbial questions. So, does anyone write code? Does anyone write code in C#? Does anyone like writing code? Does anyone have a green card they can hold up? But the trouble with the proverbial questions is, especially if you're up in front of an audience and you get up and you start asking questions. Have anyone used jQuery before? And then you go on and you don't acknowledge the response of the audience and you don't embed that into what you're saying. Make a statement. jQuery is awesome. I love technology that makes my life easier. I love not writing code and getting paid for it. That's my ultimate dream, right? I want to have people pay me lots of money to go out and use the tools the way they can be used to do fun, simple, easy things, right? Who wouldn't want that? Question. Then you're waiting for someone to respond, right? So improv is really about trying to get away from the questions which stop the conversation into making statements that can flow into the next set of things you're going to do. The 4th rule is no mistakes. And yes, if you're using barnyard language and whatever, some might consider that to be a mistake, especially if there's children in the audience and we need to keep track of who we're talking to. And there are things that, common sense say, let's stay within the bounds. But of the idea of what is it that makes this presentation work, it's coming back to how do we pull that all together. One of the rules that's not on here, and this is great for comedy. Comedy is like, it's like that trip you take where you don't have a destination, and after 3 or 4 weeks you get there. All that work, it's like that project where you're working, and you find out the ladder's leaning against the wrong wall because you didn't check to see, are we on the direction that we need to go? Comedy's fine like that. But when we're doing speeches, when we're doing our presentations, in Toastmasters especially, one of the things that's not here is beginning with an end in mind. What is it you want people to take out of this presentation to be able to use in their lives? What is it that I can give you that you can say, okay, well, this is kind of interesting. I want to learn more. Maybe it fits what I need to do. Maybe it doesn't, but at least you've taken that stretch to say, here's some information. Call to action. The first thing I put on here was the bit.ly link, so you can go out and read this article by Tina Fey in Women 2 magazine. It's a great article. And as Toastmasters, it's up to us to come up with ways that we can make our presentations not only entertaining and flow and have all of the components of what make a great speech, but it's also to say, okay, well, what can we talk about that's relevant to the audience and gives back to them so they can take it and go further with it. So with that, I encourage you, go out and check this out. Yes, and the link is bit.ly/BQT Improv, capital I on the improv, and that'll take you to where you can get to the rules of improv and have some fun with your speeches. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mike, for a great speech. Recently, I watched a movie that a small group of people put together and released on the internet, and I wrote